the value of service to other people. And a lot of these factors individually gear you up to have a mindset that pushes you to want to do better and to do more. In the case of understanding that you have a responsibility to not only serve your family, but the wider community around you, right, to them, and show them that actually every day is hard. Look, there's lots of wealthy people out there that were wealthy that aren't wealthy anymore, right? It's a lot of effort to keep your wealth as well. There are people who will just get richer and richer, but there are people who aren't, right? So people have to understand that there's a lot of effort that goes into building the life you want and also maintaining the life you want. And the one thing I try to emphasize to people is you've got to be willing to give. You've got to sacrifice. It's impossible, for you, there must be some, anomaly situation that I haven't heard of, but ultimately, like winning the lottery, but ultimately, it's just sacrifice and hard work.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspire Pod with myself, Karam Kang. We bring you the best interviews with leading business people and entrepreneurs in their industry. Today's guest is the absolute definition of a serial entrepreneur. He began investing in property since 2000 and launched an e-commerce business with Newstone in 2004, having spotted an opportunity in the market to sell building materials online. Following this, he entered the food industry with Gulmosa in 2015, which provides South Asian snacks, and he bought a branding agency, We Know You, in 2016 in Lisbon. He's recently launched a community-driven gym, Graftism, in 2018, which was acknowledged as the best independent gym in Greater London by UK Fitness Awards. And there's so much more in between there, which I'm sure he'll let you know now. Today's guest is none other than Azam Jafri. Hi Azam, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Liking the t-shirt there.
Yeah, it's my motto. It's always been my motto. I've always been called a grafter. I've always believed in grafting. You'll hear me say it all the time. I think that hard work is ultimately the underlying foundation to success. So, graftism is just that culture of working hard.
Love that. And the cap matches that motto as well.
It does, indeed.
Wicked. I know we've got a lot to go through, as you mentioned there at the top of the show, but can you start us off with a bit of a background of your own journey in business? As we know that you started off in real estate and then flowed through to other opportunities.
Yeah, so I mean, for me personally, I feel like I was born with that entrepreneurial fire. I do believe people can learn to run businesses, etc. But I think certain people are just born with a certain, you could say, gift, for argument's sake. People are artistic, people are good with poetry, people are, very skilled with athleticism, whatever. So I think I had that from a young age because, I was told stories from when I was a kid that, I'd saved my money and I'd want to get bigger notes. And even when I was 17, the first vehicle I bought was not actually a car. I bought a van and I wanted to start my own courier business. So I was like, look, I've got this van. What can I do with it? I'd go around people we know and say, look, is there anything I can do? And, they'd help me out and be like, yeah, we've got a package, go and drop it off to Leeds or whatever. But then when it came to the point of leaving school and wanting to go into business, my parents were sort of, typical kind of, yes, you should get an education, go to university, etc. It took a little bit of persuasion to convince them that wasn't really the path for me and the route for me. And I got into property. And that was in Doncaster, that's the town that I'm from. And I basically bought a terraced house, end of terraced house. It was £18,000 at the time, 3-bedroom terrace house. And renovated that and basically flipped it and sold it within 2 months for 45 grand. And the renovation costs were a few thousand, it was like, kitchen, plastering, bathrooms, painting, whatever. We did a lot of the work ourselves. It's funny enough that I have a cousin, Zishan, who's in the property business, and he's really doing very well. And all of us kids, I was like 19, 20 years old. He's 5 years younger than me. We'd all be in there scraping the walls and whatever, and those kind of memories are quite, they're quite nice memories and of how everything all started out. And then from that point, I just continued the same thing. Houses were very cheap and affordable back then. I was buying houses. The cheapest house I bought was 9 grand, and just used to go in, renovate them and flip them. I then basically moved into brownfield development. So I'd find old sites, old buildings, and then convert them into houses and apartments, etc. And that's really just how my property journey started.
Wicked. I love that. Also, what you touched upon then about your parents having to convince them to go into business because it is risky, and I'm sure you know that better than most people. Obviously, you did really well in property as you outlined there. How did you then flow that into your other businesses and start setting up Newstone, which led to Gormosa and We Know You, etc.
Cool. So, I mean, the one thing I would say initially about the property business was that I don't consider myself to be, or at that time, or even now, to be fair, any sort of expert. But at the time, there was a lot of luck. It was the right place, right time. Property was booming. I think a lot of the value that we created out of the deals was just happening through growth that was happening in the market. I picked up a lot of stuff, and by the time I got to kind of the 6th or 7th year before the property market crashed, which leads on to your question, I kind of developed a little niche, and I'd had a bit more of an understanding about the market and different locations. And we used to create, first-time buyer homes, and we put a bit more effort and thought into the kind of homes we'd create for first-time buyers, which were different to the stereotypical stuff you'd get from the big home builders. But what actually happened was while I was developing a site that actually happened to be listed, there was some kind of local authority limitations on what we could and couldn't do. And one was that we had to source some paving. Now, the paving was very similar to Yorkstone. We were allowed to use Indian sandstone. And so I went out trying to source this stuff. And when I was sourcing it, in a nutshell, I found that it was very difficult. You'd call one guy, tell you £18 a yard, and then he'd say £20 a yard 2 minutes later, and so on. And I just felt like, you know what, everything's online now. There should be some transparency, and it should be easy and quick to just place an order for some building products and some paving online. So I just ventured into doing that. I just said that, look, I need to find a way to get this stuff online. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to kind of get involved and learn. And it was simply, I found that there was an issue with the way that I was trying to consume a product online. And I wanted to kind of fix that. And I started the business, I started selling online, and it just took off. And again, it was right place, right time. People wanted to buy product online. They wanted the convenience of just being able to order and deliver on home. It created a great service for builders and landscape etc., who actually didn't need to then take time out of their day going out to place orders in the merchants, etc. They could just do the order online and spend their entire day pricing up jobs and laying paving. So that's how Newstone came about, and it grew again through, I think, two things. One is that there was a recession that came, and I think that when that happened, people were becoming a bit more price conscious, and they wanted to make savings, etc. So I think a lot of different things aligned, and then we ended up creating this e-commerce business, which then led me to understanding more about e-commerce, logistics, storage, importing, exporting, so on and so forth. And we actually then built several other e-commerce sites in the home improvement sector. That revolved from anything from wall cladding to furniture and whatever. And it was just rolling out the same formula. We just understood e-commerce. We knew we were in the space. We understood how to run ads, etc. And, we just kind of built this little group of home improvement DIY based e-commerce businesses, basically.
Okay. That's so good. You spotted that really early. Because even now people are still trying to get into e-commerce. We're seeing the growth of it due to COVID. But you're probably in it before it was called e-commerce.
But maybe actually, because I think it's a good point. Maybe we were. I mean, again, I personally don't put it down to any sort of insight or anything at the time. I'm a very different place in my career as a place as an entrepreneur now. But ultimately, back then, I just feel it was. Me just wanting to, I wanted to try things. I wanted to do things. I was very eager to learn and to progress. So I don't feel it was any type of insight or I had any type of expertise or I'd done any extensive research. I just found there was a problem or an issue with something and I just had to go at it, So a lot of it, again, is right place, right time. And that is the case for a lot of entrepreneurs, that I'm very much about promoting all the other things it takes to succeed in entrepreneurship. But there is a lot of being fortunate as well.
Yeah. And just to take it back a bit, you gave a bit of a background in the first question, on your upbringing. And I know from previous interviews, you've really credited your father and the influence he had on you in business. Can you talk about, those early years when, growing up and, future impacts that it had on you to really push through with entrepreneurship and take risks and, grow what you're building today?
Yeah. So, I mean, my father particularly, kind of really showed us the value of hard work and the value of being patient, the value of service to other people. And a lot of these factors individually gear you up to have a mindset that pushes you to want to do better and to do more. In the case of understanding that you have a responsibility to not only serve your family, but the wider community around you, drives you to do more when you understand the value in that purpose. Being hardworking, seeing someone not scared to graft, not scared to sacrifice, not scared to, do more for others than themselves. These kind of things, watching them, they mold you. They just change your approach to things. I feel that today we're in a society where young people have an impression that they're entitled, they want things, they expect things, and you're just not going to get anything that way. And so we just saw the graft. We just saw the elements that you needed to gear yourself up for the real world, because life is tough, man. It really is tough. And if you, I don't disagree with, having a good time and a luxury and all the rest of it, if you've earned it, right? If you've earned it, simple. If you haven't reached that stage yet and you haven't, then it becomes a problem. So, my father was very influential on a lot of levels, even till this day. I admire anybody that is, just patient and hardworking and willing to make sacrifices, and that, I think that's what you need in business. You need patience. You need to be willing to work hard. You need to be willing to sacrifice. You need to be willing to have faith. And that's a pretty guaranteed winning formula.
I love that. And, going on to my next question, you touched upon a word there, faith. I know, following you on Instagram and again, with your previous interviews, you've really credited your faith and your religion in Islam. And so many entrepreneurs we've spoken to on here really say their religions, were the foundations for what built them up in business. Can you talk about the impact of Islam on your business and upbringing, and how it helps you with your what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's funny because I spent a part of my childhood in Kenya, in Mombasa. That was our sort of second home. It's where we went from when we were young. The community in Mombasa, for people who are familiar with the area, is very integrated. So all cultures, all communities, all faiths integrate. And Diwali, we would go to the temple, and we would all meet with one another. So the key thing that I would emphasize is, I happen to, Islam happens to be the faith that I practice and follow. But from all the faiths and the core truths of the faiths that I've come across, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Sikhism, whether it's Judaism, whatever it might be, the core of it is the same. It's just being good people, right? And so what I take from Islam is ultimately the tools that we need, because that's what all religions came to do. They came to help us as human beings, because we're pretty helpless on our own, right? We need, faith gives us lots of things. Just as an example, faith gives you the ability to go beyond your normal capability. You could call it dreaming. Faith allows you to believe that I can go way beyond what I would normally believe myself to be capable of, or other people may tell me I'm capable of, right? Faith allows you to take on problems and tackle those problems and realize that there is a chance I may come out of this on the other side. I may be able to get through this. This struggle has maybe come to me for a reason. Let me find the good out of this. So for me, faith is key, because I need to believe that there is two things. One is that I'm not alone, and I can rely on God, right? Yeah. Whoever your God is, I can rely on God, and I can rely on God in the times that I need that support that doesn't come from me. And I'll just give you, I'm not capable of dealing with by myself. And just as an example of this, all the highly successful people that I've ever asked this sort of question, people with 500 billion, a million, sorry, net worth, half a billion net worth. big players, guys who've sold their companies for 600, 700 million, whatever. They all say something very, very similar, and it's we could see something other people couldn't see. And I really put that down to faith. I really put it down to, the vision that we get, the ability that we have. It comes down to this, where does that come from, And so I personally put it down to, you get this from, God or, wherever. And it's your choice then to pursue that and take that forward. So faith is really important. It just, for me, it gives me, so I could do a whole podcast on this, but it gives me a lot of stuff. It gives me strength. It gives me direction. It gives you a higher purpose, because when we go beyond materialism and we find that, okay, the Ferrari's nice, but actually doesn't give me that much satisfaction, and the watch is nice, but it tells the time, and you kind of then are searching for something more and something deeper. And when you study some of the very highly successful people, why do they turn to philanthropy, and why do they turn to all these different things? Because as a human being, there's a place for material things, there's a place for what money can buy, but it just doesn't fill you up. And so that's why, if I've tried to abbreviate as much as I can, why faith is important for me.
No, I love that. And before that, you touched upon, something about how kids these days, they don't see the graft and the hard work that goes in business. And again, going from what we see in your social media, you really do try and show that. Can you give a bit of an example of the true sacrifices, the hard works and the challenges that you've had to overcome during your journeys and, getting you to a position you're in now?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads. The first thing that I would say is there is no such thing as a balanced life, right? A balanced life means you're pretty much going nowhere. And that's just the facts. So if you want to achieve anything that you would consider to be over and above, right? So if the average salary is 20,000 and you want to make 30,000, you've got to do something different to the 100 people that are on the 20,000. It's just simple. You're going to have to give something, right? You may have some extra skill, extra ability. You may be able to work more, you may be able to work the machine more, than everybody else in the same number of hours. But ultimately, in principle, there's something that has to give. And so through my journey, lots of things, look, when I got married, I never went on holiday for the first 7 years. And it wasn't that we couldn't actually even afford to go. We could, but it was just, I was so invested in doing what I need to do in the early phases of my life that I just felt like, I was always this believer in, you've got years and years ahead of you to really enjoy it. And why not enjoy it when you can really enjoy it? Not that, we didn't have any fun or we didn't have a good time or whatever, but it was just, I was so dedicated to doing what I needed to do that, I felt that's what was needed of me. I probably did certain things wrong, but it was just commitments that I was making and things that I felt I was responsible for, and I just couldn't leave them, and I know people who've never gone on holiday at all, so it's that, there's lots of things like that, not getting to see your kids as much as you want. I've had various times in the past where health has really suffered badly, whether it's stress that you're not aware of, whether it's lack of sleep, poor diet, just running the body into the ground. There's been all sorts, you come across normal challenges in business, whether they're financial, something goes wrong, something doesn't work out. There's so many sacrifices you make, whether they're mental, physical, emotional, personal, the list is just endless, but there's lots and lots of things that I always zone in on that one thing. And even though I'm not saying that I was right for doing it, I've ended up with circumstances that I'm happy with. I don't think, you can go back and change things. It's meant to be the way it's meant to be. But whenever I make this point about not having a holiday, there's a deeper message within that. And it's funny because I was at an event where it was a VC event and I was on the panel as like an angel investor. And I wanted to just continuously emphasize to these guys who were startups that were trying to raise money, that the raising money element means nothing, right? You need to make money, right? There are people who've raised lots of money and they can't make 50p. But it's more about your approach to business. It's become glorified to go out and raise money and we've got this VC behind us or whatever, but you're missing the whole point. And that's one of the reasons why there's all these tech startups in the States where young guys are killing themselves, people are killing themselves because, once you get in the mix, you realize, wow, this isn't the fantasy that we, thought this was going to be. And the one thing I try to emphasize to people is you've got to be willing to give. You've got to sacrifice. It's impossible. you know, for you, you know, there must be some, you know, anomaly situation that I haven't heard of, but ultimately, you know, like winning the lottery, but ultimately, you know, it's just sacrifice and hard work. And young people today, because we live in a society where you know, there's so much distraction, and, you know, we have these tools that allow people to show the highlight reels of their lives, the fake lives, or whatever it might be. It really is misleading people from the real path, which is, you're going to have to give this up. You're going to have to not go out with your mates for a few nights. You want to buy a property, you want to do something, you're going to have to save some money, right? You're not saving any money if you're flipping partying and going on holidays all the time. You know, it's just the way it is. But once you've saved that money and you've made that investment, well, that may start giving you a return. Now you're earning an extra 6% a year. Okay, take that 6% and do what you want with it. But you know what I'm saying? So I think young people just don't have, at the moment, that you know, unfortunately, enough guidance. Because even as entrepreneurs, a lot of people will show the glamour and not go in and go, you know what I went through to get this. You know, they just see, the young people just see the Ferrari, go, we need the Ferrari. You know, you don't realize the guy, you know, went through hell, you know, for the last 10, 15, 20 years to get that Ferrari, you know, so.
Now, there's so much truth in that, especially, you know, people showing off what they have, but it might be rented, it might be their mates, they're not grafting, and then that leads to 3-4 other people seeing it and feel like they need to do that as well.
Yeah.
And nowadays we live in a generation of instant gratification. People just expect things within 2 seconds, whereas, you know, Paul Bassi, who we had on the show a few months ago, he actually said it probably takes 15 years to be an overnight success. You know, these things don't just turn up on your door. And you talked about a couple of setbacks that you had. What gets you through them? You know, I know you mentioned your faith, but is there anything else, such as mindset or, you know, your vision? How do you push through?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you take faith out of the equation, it's just recognizing that we're not perfect. So, and not having expectations. You see, we never actually are let down by the result. We're let down by our expectations that were never met. Now, if I go into an equation thinking, right, this business needs to generate $1 billion in sales tomorrow, and it doesn't, well, I'm disappointed, aren't I? But if I understand there's a process, and that process may not be exactly as I expect it to be, and I've got to go with the flow. What I've got to do is hit an obstacle, or get to day 3, 4, 5, year 2, 3, 4, whatever it might be, and make assessments as I'm going along. And those areas where I'm not approaching things with blind expectation, but I'm actually expecting things to happen a certain way, and for new things to come up, and things that I'm not quite expecting to even happen, and addressing those when they come quickly and effectively, I'm going to be able to keep moving. The minute something happens that isn't what we want to happen, you know, or we didn't hit as many sales as we planned, you know, if I start dwelling on that idea, I'm going nowhere. So I think expecting to not get everything right is very important, because what we often do, and this is for a lot of young aspiring entrepreneurs and, you know, people in business, is that we're very good at creating all the scenarios we want to happen. And when they don't happen, we're not very good at understanding why they didn't, and you know, and accepting that they didn't, right? It's all well and good going, we are going to make this much money, but what happens if you don't? Yeah. And we've got to be equally as prepared, you know, as much as we are ambitious and driven and hopeful, we've got to equally be as prepared for those things. So I think for me, it's just very much about, I've got a plan, I'm going to go forward. If it goes the way I plan, great, let me understand what I'm doing and do more of that and do it better. If it doesn't happen the way I planned, then I'm expecting that anyway, because there's no way I know everything, especially when you're going to something that you don't know about, and environments are changing and climate's changing. Look, you know, in business, you know, something can happen in the economy. All of a sudden, your imports are more expensive. COVID comes along, everything shuts down. You know, there's going to be something somewhere in one way or the other that's going to affect you. And it's about your approach to that, understanding that the process of business is going to be that it's going to throw you curveballs, and if you go into the world of business in that mindset, you'll not get hit by everyone. It's simple, you know.
What you mentioned there, it just reminded me exactly of a book that I read a few times. You know, Ray Dalio Principles.
Yeah.
Where he speaks about the curve of, you know, expectations. You're going to fail. Yeah. You learn, you pick up again, and it's a revolving circle. Exactly what you mentioned there. And as you know, have quite a few businesses, and you said earlier, balance doesn't exist. How do you, as a serial entrepreneur, manage your time over different businesses or link them together? And if you could give any examples of the ones you're currently overseeing.
Sure. So the one thing I emphasize again to a lot of young people is that, specialize in an area, give it 110%, build that business, build your team, build your infrastructure, get it to a stage where the business no longer requires you to be involved 24/7, right? Then move on to the next project. So if you take my background, we're still in the property business, but I started out in property. It's a very different type of business and industry. So the first kind of place where I was, let's say, innovative or whatever was when I got into e-commerce. Whatever we did in the e-commerce space led to whatever other businesses we built in that space, because they all had synergy. They were, you could use the same fulfillment, we could use the same software, we could do the same thing. We understood the process, so they were all very similar. So it wasn't really going off track as such. But in that process, we then learned about things like branding, marketing, so on and so forth. So you have all these tools and these skills and these suppliers and different people that you're building in that network. So even when I went on to build the food businesses, I already had an understanding of how to brand, how to communicate with an audience, all the different sort of things that we needed, and it didn't really deviate from us having to learn a lot more stuff. We no doubt we learned a lot. Learned a lot of different things, but it wasn't me having to go a million miles away from where I already was. But what I'd done was I'd already got the previous business established. So I had, team, infrastructure, experience, etc. And then I moved on to the next project. Where we're at now is at a stage where I've actually now, I wouldn't say completely stopped launching my own projects, because I have launched Graftism, but there's a whole story behind Graftism as well, where I've now moved to the stage where I'm investing more in people and businesses that are not going to require me to be that guy like I was with Newstone, where I was driving the forklift and physically packing the orders and taking the emails and phone calls and doing whatever. So I think the key thing for me is going into a business, giving it all, structuring it, getting it set up, getting your people in place, and then you can oversee that. And again, the overseeing of businesses that all have synergy. It's not like we're manufacturing generators in one business and there's a whole different process. We're literally selling direct to consumer, and it's just so yes, there are similarities and dissimilarities, but it's not as complex. But it's very much about people, and this is a key thing for me. It's become, I now am very aware of the fact that once upon a time where I used to be this lone ranger and I kind of tried to take on the world myself, I've become very aware of the fact that you need people that are better than you at the job that than you are. You need to find people with ideas and skills that you can relate to, that your experience can add value to that particular project or venture, and then you kind of play your role in that. So and there are many entrepreneurs out there that work in a way bigger. I'm nothing special. There are people out there who have hundreds and hundreds of companies that they have investments in or some sort of role in or whatever it might be. But for me, I'm no longer in a position where I'm the day-to-day guy operating the business. So
yeah, and that so important with like multiple streams of income, putting your efforts in and building out teams. And one thing I wanted to touch upon that you said about Graftism. Obviously that's one of your latest ventures. Can you talk about what went behind there and the vision with that community-driven gym?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I'm at a stage now as an entrepreneur where I really would like to make social change and impact. I'm a people's person. I genuinely love people. I like seeing people win. It's just something that's in me, and so when I was looking at the areas that I'm familiar with, and this actually goes back to the point you mentioned earlier, is identifying kind of areas that about, skills that you have, resources you have. That's always useful for you when going into any sort of industry. Look at yourself as opposed to looking around you, and understand what it is that you're doing or what it is that you know about, and go there, because you'll have an advantage. So with Graftism, initially the concept of Graftism came about with me essentially wanted to build a brand that promoted good values. So rather than all the stuff we see on social media, where it promotes, I'm eating this fine dining restaurant, I'm having this, I have this car, this watch, I've done this and done the other. How about we champion hard work? How about we champion relationships, community, people? How about we champion, results that we've worked for and the process that we're going through to get those results? Let's talk about that journey. And so that's what Graftism came about. And, I'll eventually get the book finished, but I'm writing a book called Graftism, which is the ideology of hard work and all the benefits. So even how, as a hardworking person, you don't just get the results you get in the work you're doing, it actually enhances your character in so many other ways. Whenever you meet a hardworking person that is the opposite to someone who's lazy, they generally possess nice qualities, right? They generally possess better qualities. And I'm talking about a genuine hardworking person that is, kind and nice as well. You'll find that they'll have, often have more attractive qualities about them. So what I then found was that, again, it's me, with any project that I've ever started, it's never been about me having this, oh, I want to be a gym owner, or I want to be this, or I want to do that. I've seen this other person doing it. It just happens to be where I'm at and what I'm going through in life. The food business, for example, with Gormosa was actually happened through, very quickly, just off the point, but happened through me. I was unhealthy. I was overworking. I got a coach. He started teaching me about macros, so I got this app called MyFitnessPal. I'd put my calories in there, but I love Desi food, right? So every time I wanted to have a samosa or something, imagine it just, for argument, I'm just doing something to make you laugh, make the app crash, because it'd just be too high in fats and saturated fats and salt and whatever. And I was like, look, I like Desi food. And actually our food has a lot of the, beneficial superfoods and spices like turmeric and stuff like that are really good for us. So it must be just a preparation process that we've kind of got a little bit wrong. It's a bit old school. Maybe we can tweak this. So Gormosa just came around from me wanting to have enjoy the flavors and the benefits we get in the foods that we have, and just reduce a little bit of the stuff that isn't so good for us. But going back to Graftism, I've always trained in bodybuilding gyms, and those gyms have always had this really cool sense of, community and people that just get together, and there's just these relationships that you just don't find anywhere else. As an example, I've been to other health clubs and stuff, and you're scared to ask someone if they've got how many sets they've got left on a machine, because they're just, everyone's got their headphones on, walking around, there's no sense of community. And it's very important in this day and age where we're glued to these phones, that we have real relationships, that we really interact with real people, in real life. So I saw this as a great opportunity. The gyms generally, were quite run down. They needed to be enhanced. They needed to cater for the online and offline experience, because you can't just kind of have one anymore. And so I wanted to just create a gym, which, hopefully, depending on how COVID plays out, with the goal was to roll out a lot more. I was actually in the process of buying some more prior to this all happening. But the idea is to create environments that cultivate more positive relationships, give people the opportunity to come and meet. This will tackle a lot of issues, whether it's mental health, whether it's whatever, that, a place where people feel welcome. It genuinely is a second home for people. Not only are they able to do what they want to do on social media, and they can post, and it's a cool place to be, etc., but we're really cultivating positive relationships. But a deeper level beyond that, it's what this all really means. And what we promote in the gyms is people coming and trying to better themselves. And it's about them working hard towards their goals. And we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to show off. We don't need to be pretentious about things. Let's just be who we are. And going beyond that, then the idea is for me is to really build a lifestyle brand out of Graftism. So it started in fitness. It wasn't necessarily the plan, because I built the idea of the brand before I stuck it on the gym, right? But fitness would be an element of it. But my goal is to have a brand that young people specifically resonate with, that makes it not only acceptable, but admirable and cool for them to be working. So what I would rather see is a post from someone showing the work they're putting in, the genuine work they're putting in, and everyone giving them a round of applause for the work they're doing, not them having to show something they haven't yet achieved or feel they've got to be part of this culture. And when young people have other people they aspire to that promote the reality of life, right, to them, and show them that actually every day is hard. Look, there's lots of wealthy people out there that were wealthy that aren't wealthy anymore, right? It's a lot of effort to keep your wealth as well. There are people who will just get richer and richer, but there are people who aren't, right? So people have to understand that there's a lot of effort that goes into building the life you want and also maintaining the life you want. And that idea of building and maintaining is graftism. It's basically just that continuous mentality of the fact that we work for, we appreciate, the life we have, and we give it a go, and that's what this, the slogan stands for as well. The hard work, it does pay off, man. It pays off. Whatever you apply yourself to, it will pay off, but we lack that motive at the moment. So that's the vision for graftism, to encompass people's physical well-being as well as their mental well-being, and even then encouraging people to, rolling into people's actual work life. So there's other projects that I'm working on in the pipeline, which I'll tell you about in the near future, but all tie into this, trying to, encourage more positive behavior and reminding or even introducing the next generation to the mindset and tools that they need to succeed. Because just as a quick point, when I was at this particular event, this VC event, the one thing I said to a lot of the audience who were from the South Asian community was, how was it that our parents, grandparents came to this country with nothing, couldn't speak the language, and have made a huge success of themselves, where they built businesses, they owned property, they did stuff, and how come none of us can do it? Right? That makes no sense, right? How did they do it? And there must be something missing. Right. And I can go into a whole story about that in itself, but there is something missing, and it's all to do with what's up here. Right. So, and it's mind boggling, man, when you actually think about it, that people came here, they couldn't speak the language. There was probably more objection from the community and the people around them at that time. It was more difficult, the people were less accepting, whatever, and they still managed to build for themselves. I'm not willing to listen to the excuses that property was cheaper than, look, man, there are kids starting businesses and turning them into, 10 million pound businesses overnight. It's so common. There's no excuse. It's just mindset.
Yeah, that's wicked. And love what you said about graftism there and the community in the gym. Gyms don't have that. And it's like you say, I remember when I used to hit gym quite regularly before I joined a health club, it is that, like, you're your own person, you have your headphones on, you don't want to speak to anybody and just keep yourself to yourself. So again, innovating, and you've also tied it into other things which you've done. And one thing that interests me is, so because you've worked on loads of projects, you're actually, people sit there dreaming of ideas but do none. It seems like every idea you come across, you actually take to a business. How do you get that idea, that problem, and turn it into a revenue generating company?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I think let's take graftism as an example. So if I was to break the business down for you, what I would see was so if you take split the business into a few different elements. If you take experience, right? So we're in an experience economy now. There was a lack of experience in the gyms that I would go to because many owners were not reinvesting in the sites and creating more of an experience when you come into the gym, right? So that's, good lighting, good decor, photo ops, social media, selfie ops, video ops, whatever, right? Opportunities to do all the stuff that people want to do. So there's the one side of saying, right, well, we need to create more of an experience in this gym, and we need to be, it needs to be social media centric. The second side of it was actually understanding the consumer. So the consumer themselves were, the weightlifters, right? So the male and female weightlifters are the ones who consume all the supplements, the protein products, etc. So I was like, look, well, there's clear opportunity being missed here because all the secondary spend that's going elsewhere could be done in the gym. And then what actually happens is when there's a sense of community and people feel like it's their own place and it's their second home, and that's what we want to create. That's our USP. That's what we do, right? They'd rather spend even an extra £5 on something in the gym than go and give that business elsewhere, because it feels like they feel like that, which they genuinely are, contributing to their own place, because we continuously reinvest that money in the gym, so they have better equipment, better stuff. So there's that element, which is understanding the revenue potential that's clearly being missed out on. And again, it's experience I've had in doing different things, working over things over the last 20 years, just understanding how to create that uplift. And then it's again, as a kind of final part is understanding people's basic needs, right? So people want to get together, they want to hang out, they want to talk to other people. and it's facilitating that. So there are some gyms that are in the same sector that, you know, you feel alienated, you know, you feel like you might get beat up in the place, or women don't feel safe, or they don't feel comfortable, or whatever it might be. So it's again providing that service. You know, you get a service wherever you go, an airline, a restaurant, whatever, and it's providing that service.
That's it.
That's what every business should be. It should
Yeah.
be about the consumer and giving them value, you know.
Yeah, if anybody you know, is starting up, you know, really think about that. Exactly like you said, what value are you giving to the end consumer? Sometimes people make businesses for themselves and think everyone's going to automatically like it. In part of at the beginning of the interview, you spoke about, you know, how your health's changed and you're looking over that. You know, and you've tweaked things within your day and your routine. Can you talk about, you know, your routine as a whole, and if there's anything in your day or, you know, months that you absolutely, you know, staple and do religiously?
Yeah, so the last couple of years, so I mentioned that I had health issues, and there was a time where I just think I was just hammering myself. And I you know, I encourage young people when they've got that, you know, steam. I mean, I still think I'm young, but I'm 40. So it's, you know, you've got to start being realistic about your age, and you want that longevity, right? So you know, when you're younger, you probably have that ability to do 20-hour shifts and all the rest of it. But there comes a point where you've got to then start understanding that your body won't be able to keep doing that, and it's not sustainable. So when I started to really get run down, I realized that I need to take care of myself, because I want to do a lot. I want to be there for my children. You know, I need to make sure this is performing. And that's when I really started understanding more about self-development and my own body. So 2018, I got involved in kind of biohacking and started implementing different biohacks, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's trying to improve my sleep, you know, whether it's different supplementation. You know, I go for regular blood tests to see how I'm performing. So, you know, that was key. And then also spending a lot of time on myself. So even at the moment, like I study areas that I feel will help me enhance myself, and also then allow me to help other people, which is something that I'm very passionate about. So if you say what the core elements of my routine that I'm very much focused on working on at the moment on a daily basis is improving sleep quality, which is a very big issue for me. It's still something that I'm struggling with in a big way. It's just, you know, understanding the importance of me getting that recovery in sleep. You know, I'm still machine mode, graft mode. I like to stay up and do things. Meditating more is definitely something that I'm doing. I you know, I meditate daily now, which I see as being separate to prayer. I think there's prayer is one vehicle, and meditation is another. Diet wise, I have a very controlled diet throughout the week. So I pretty much eat the same food, have the same sort of calorie intake daily throughout the week. When it comes to work, I am now doing 4 hours of what you would call very high kind of focused work. The rest of it, I've now understood how to manage my schedule differently and how to delegate more. Again, these are things you learn along the way. Some people are very good, man. Some people are very good at just getting things early on. Some things have took me quite a long time to get my head around, to understand that I'm just doing it back to front and I'm just making life difficult for myself. So I work 4 hours of very focused work. The rest of it, I'll kind of split into areas that are not so important, but I'd just be kind of in the middle of everything all the time, you know, and that's how I've kind of managed to now expand and look at new opportunities and look at new things. So, and then exercise, obviously I own a gym, so I've got no excuse, you know, I can't get really out of shape now, because, you know, that's another thing. Everyone's so motivated and driven at Graftism that you just go there and want to train now. You know, no, we haven't been there for a bit, but the long and short of it is that, you know, the exercise and the training is very important, and that keeps me kind of fueled and going. And I see a very big difference between not exercising and exercising, you know, eating the wrong kind of foods and eating the right kind of foods. And then it's just, I'm really heavily invested in my children, so I have dedicated time to spend with them. And as we mentioned before, there's always some give and take. So what that then means is that, you know, you're probably going to compromise on your own social life a little bit, which is absolutely fine for me. You know, I am very focused on ensuring that I contribute to society by raising the best children that I can, in a positive way. And that may mean right now that I just can't go out and live it up as much as I want, or enjoy myself as much as I want. But that time just needs to be given to them right now. You know, they're 11 and 14, and I just need to make sure that whatever time I have available, or I have to make that time to do that. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of what I'm trying to do at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm learning, sorry. So I'm learning. So I'm actually doing, I'm learning a lot around things. It's funny because I want to go, I want to do a lot more on social media. But I always feel like, even when you want to help people, you should know how to do it properly, and you should be giving value and ensuring that you're not just, because what may happen sometimes is you start something with good intentions. Like, I want to help people. I feel I've got some experience. I want to share it with people. You then get into a ritual of posting on social media because now you're there and you think you have to do it. But you may end up talking a lot of waffle, right? So, and not adding any value, because now you think, oh, you're now a social media guru or influencer or something, and you've got to do that. So I'm actually doing some courses in life coaching and NLP and things like that, which I'm doing just so that I believe that I have the guidelines that I should have when it comes to helping others effectively. So I'm very keen to do that. So I'm doing a lot of learning. I'm finding areas that I feel I want to develop myself in, but also where I feel I can add value to, other people, the next generation. So a lot of my time is now being given to learning as well, which I never did, by the way. So just on that point, I never used to read. So I started reading about 1.5 years ago. I never read anything. And then I started seeing the value in reading. In some cases, a lot of the stuff that I've read, when you've been through real life experience, you've kind of been there and you've done it and you've ended up having to learn it. So even when you read a lot of books, it's just people saying the same thing more or less, right? In a lot of cases, it really is. But what I've found is that reading has a certain type of impact on your mind. It's like you might say someone's got a good physique. Well, if they don't go to the gym, they may look okay and they may just be naturally gifted and may look better than most people, but they could look better. And I think that's the thing for me with reading now, is that it's the muscle. It keeps it going.
Yeah, that's it. I love what you said about, social media gurus and actually, doing what you say. That was a bit of an influence for this podcast, because when I set up my own business, I knew I was asking everybody, who had their own business, whether it was in family or reaching out to people or, reading books. And, a lot of these podcasts I've seen, I was like, hold on, this person's never, done their own business yet they're speaking about it. So I thought, rather than myself, who's only been doing it about 18 to 20 months, let's get people who have actually done that, walk the walk, talk the talk, get them on to speak about their interests and, their experiences in business. Because, there's a lot of fluff out there, definitely.
No, there is no doubt. And we're just in a culture that encourages that. And look, by no means am I the best or the most successful entrepreneur. I've had some big losses. I've had some good wins. But I'm in it. I'm in the game. And I feel that there is a value and a credit that is given to people that are real life entrepreneurs, not doing it for the show. They're doing it for the game. They're passionate. It's not fluff. It's not this, that, and the other. They're real people who've been in the trenches. They've done it themselves. Because again, it's hard for people to, young people with all this noise specifically, to differentiate. Like, how do you know who is really what, right? And how do you know who's got what? And it's not always the case, man, that the people who have the most money have got the most value and experience to give. There are a lot of people out there who've got into things, got lucky, it's happened very quick, but they don't have depth to them. When you go dig deep, it's just sort of like, wait a minute, there's not a lot there, And so I think when it comes down to value, experience is just one of those things, in any area. If you want to go, speak to someone and develop yourself spiritually, the experience is invaluable. It really is. And real raw entrepreneurs that are in there, that are trying things, that are willing to win, that are willing to lose, that's what it's all about.
That's it. And for anybody who's, looking to start bettering their life, whether, it's just in employment or their careers or business, what top tips would you, give them to start working on for themselves?
Yeah, so I think, one thing that's very important right now is starving the distractions. You've heard that saying, starve distractions, feed the focus. We're in a very busy world. And what that does is it takes us further away from ourselves. So it's very important for you to know who you are. And I do this. So within my meditation, sometimes even when I'm not meditating, I just go into a room and sit by myself. And even just for 15 minutes, I just need to collect my thoughts. COVID's been amazing for that, because I've had an opportunity to really rethink and spend some time and get into the zone and know what's coming next and really be where I want to be. So you've just got to spend time within yourself. The biggest thing, this mistake that we make, you know, that we do is we just spend so much time focusing on other people. We're involved in other people's lives. We care about other people's opinions. We're following what other people are doing. You know, it's amazing. I see grown men, you know, start doing dances on TikTok or whatever that are, you know, like 15-year-old kids are doing. I mean, we're just in this robot mode. Like, we just see someone else do it, we do it, you know? And so it's very important to take ownership of yourself. We've all been given a gift. I truly believe that. And I feel that we need to be aware of who we are. And when we start digging within ourselves, we start discovering things that we never would have found. And we actually care less and less about what other people are doing, because we find we're an ocean. And the deeper we go within ourselves, the more we find. And that may not be like anything else anybody else is doing, which is absolutely fine. So I think one is definitely finding, you know, yourself. And then when you do that, you'll discover what you really want. And that'll genuinely drive you towards where you should be going, right? So if you want to spend more time doing this, or you want to earn more money, or you want to achieve this goal, or whatever it might be, at least those things are things you really want to do. And then you'll find the fire to do it, because a lot of people will run out of steam very quickly because you have a goal that isn't even your goal. You don't even know what you want. You just think it's cool to rent a car and drive around, right? So let's rent a car and drive around. But what happens next? So I really emphasize to people, spend time alone, try to cut out distractions, cut out the noise. The noise can be coming from other people that is distracting you, that is limiting your ability to move forward. And a lot of the noise can be within your own head. So it's just about kind of clearing up your own mind and just spending a bit of time and finding out who you are. And you'll get all the answers from that. And then all the other tools you need, whether it's working hard or getting up early in the morning or doing whatever, they're all cool. The biggest problem we have is we just don't know who we are.
Love that. And it goes back to, you know, a lot of spirituality as well, you know, with your mindset and who you are. And you've mentioned within this interview, and I know, you know, you mentioned it on previous ones, obviously your WOW network with other people who are very successful, doing well in their businesses. What are the key traits that you see in them?
Yeah, so I mean, if I was to give you a key trait that I see in people that I find to be successful, is exactly that. They know what they want, right? So I can go across a spectrum of people. I know people who can't read and write properly who are highly successful. And I know people who are very intellectual and highly intelligent who aren't, right? You know, and very qualified, right? And the thing that I found is exactly this. The guy who can't even read and write just doesn't bother himself with what anyone else has to say or do or proving anything to anyone. He is so, or she is so focused on what they want to do. And that is what I have seen to be the underlying key to success. People who get what they want are focused on getting what they want. And the people who aren't, right, are the people that will have all these goals and aspirations and maybe have a ton of potential to achieve that. But they're overwhelmed by everything else going on around them that has nothing to do with their goal, right, and takes them away from their goal. So that's the one thing that I've really found. It's one thing that I've been working on myself a lot more, is to understand how to detach myself from things that don't align with my goals, because all they're doing is stopping me, whether it's people, whether it's ideas, whether it's influence, whether it's this phone, whatever it might be. So, you know, success comes down to being laser focused on what you want. That could come from people just not caring, like I just don't give a, you know, whatever about what anyone's doing, what anyone's thinking, I've just got my goal. Or it is just mastering the art of being focused. But people who are successful just know what they want and they do it. It's just as simple as that. Digital consumption is going to keep going up. You know, services that are going to, you know, your Squares and these types of services are going to keep growing, you know, and so, but it's ultimately just all about understanding what people want and what people need and how, and what they can and can't do anymore, you know?
Yeah, I think when you look at what Joe Wicks did on, you know, his home online trading, he got 1 million downloads just from the first session. And then, you know, companies that I still can't believe that about Primark, you know, and then you've got companies like Boohoo, Pretty Little Thing, which are absolutely killing it now.
Yeah.
And just going on to the final round. So final part of the podcast, I'm sure you see it with a lot. We dip into like a final 5 quick fire round. It could be 1 word to 1 sentence. And, you know, we try and tailor it for you as well. So we'll kick it off. As you work across different industries, what's the one industry you most prefer?
I would say fitness right now.
Goodness. Following you on Instagram and online, you've got a lot of quotes. What is the one quote you would say you live by?
So the quote is, live amongst people in such a manner that if you die, they weep over you, and if you're alive, they crave for your company. Just be an awesome person.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. Should have ended on that.
It's tattooed on my arm.
And this one's probably relevant now because of COVID, but what's the one best non-weighted workout somebody can do at home daily to get fit?
There's so many variations. It's hard to give one, but you can do all sorts. A combination of burpees and squats and all sorts. So there's so many. So it's impossible to say one.
And what would you say has been your one key trait which has helped you in success?
I'm just a dreamer, man. I would say gratitude. To be fair, I just feel so grateful to be alive, and I just want to max it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final question. What does success mean to you?
It's how much you can contribute to bettering other people's lives.
Beautiful. Love that. And for anybody who wants to follow you, follow your work, your social media, where can they go to see you?
Yeah, so I'm primarily at the moment on Instagram, but I'm hoping to launch, a podcast, do some more stuff on YouTube, and get a lot more active. I feel like there's a need for contributing to, just in the way that I've spoken to the next generation, and so I'd like to be in a position to do a lot more once we can get out and about and do things. So hopefully you and I can do something again.
Wicked. No, absolutely amazing having you on. So much, amazing words spoken there. And like I said, anybody in the audience, follow Azam online, loads of great information about business. I know I'm always going through his stories as well. And with ourselves, remember to like, share, subscribe, inspire.pod, Inspire Pod. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye.